I'm here to inspect the electrical before the pour. Safety doesn't care what color I am, it only cares if the work is right.
Safety?
Please!
I'm seeing mistakes a kid wouldn't make. Tell me, Marcus, can you even read those plans, or do we need to draw you pictures?
My record is 15 years, 0 violations. If you've got a real issue with my work, put it in writing. We're the engineers here. We have the degrees. We make the decisions. And I've decided people like him don't belong on AOR's site. Oops. Butterfingers. Maybe if you spent less time acting professional and more time learning the trade, you'd be worth something. You can throw my paperwork in the dirt, Brad, but you don't get to throw my dignity down there with it. What are you gonna do, Marcus? Cry to HR? You're nobody. Replaceable. Forgettable. No one's choosing you over us.
What happens when a group of engineers thinks they can humiliate a black worker just because of the color of his skin? They're about to learn the most expensive lesson of their careers. This is a story that will leave you speechless, and trust me, you won't believe how this ends. Stay with me. Marcus Williams had been working on construction sites for 15 years. A master electrician with certifications that would make any contractor proud. He was known for his precision, dedication, and quiet professionalism. He held licenses in 3 states, had completed over 200 major projects without a single safety violation, and had trained dozens of apprentices who now ran their own successful electrical contracting businesses. His reputation was built on excellence, integrity, and an unshakable work ethic that earned him respect from everyone who truly knew his capabilities. But on this particular Tuesday morning at the Riverside Commercial Complex project, none of that seemed to matter. The sun had barely risen over the skeletal structure of the future shopping complex as Marcus arrived at the site, clipboard in hand, ready to inspect the electrical work before the concrete pour scheduled for later that afternoon. His steel-toed boots crunched against the gravel as he made his way toward the main building. He'd reviewed the blueprints the night before, as he always did, noting potential issues and preparing his inspection checklist with the thoroughness that had become his trademark. But as he approached the temporary office trailer, he was immediately confronted by 3 lead engineers, Brad, Kevin, and Tom. They were huddled near the main control panel, snickering as he approached, their body language radiating hostility before a single word was even spoken. "Hey, look who finally decided to show up," Brad called out loudly, his voice cutting through the morning air, making sure everyone within earshot could hear. His tone dripped with mockery. "Thought maybe you got lost on your way here. Need us to draw you a map? Maybe use some pictures instead of words." The crew of nearly 40 workers paused mid-task. Welders lifted their masks. Carpenters stopped hammering. Some looked away uncomfortably, recognizing the ugliness unfolding before them. Others stopped to watch, uncertain whether to intervene or stay silent. The tension was immediate and suffocating. Marcus kept his composure, his face a mask of professional calm despite the disrespect. "Good morning, gentlemen. I'm here to conduct the electrical inspection as scheduled. We have a concrete pour this afternoon, and I need to verify all conduit placements and junction boxes before we proceed." Kevin stepped forward, deliberately blocking his path to the control panel, invading his personal space in a clear power move. "Inspection? Maybe you should start by inspecting yourself, buddy. Did you even graduate high school? Because I'm looking at your work orders here, and I'm seeing mistakes a child wouldn't make. Actually, I'm wondering if you can even read these technical documents." The lies were brazen and calculated. Marcus's work was flawless, it always was. His documentation was meticulous, his calculations precise, his installations textbook perfect. But the engineers continued their assault, growing bolder with each passing moment, feeding off each other's cruelty like a pack emboldened by numbers. Tom joined in, circling around Marcus like a predator, his voice dripping with condescension. "You know what? Why don't you go grab us some coffee instead? 3 creams, 2 sugars for me. That seems more suitable for your skill set. Leave the real work to the professionals, you know, people who actually understand what they're doing." He emphasized the word professionals with a sneer that left no doubt about his meaning. The words hung in the air like poison, contaminating the entire work site. Marcus felt every eye on him, felt the weight of the humiliation they were trying to bury him under. His jaw tightened. His hands trembled slightly at his sides, not from fear, but from the supreme effort it took to maintain his dignity in the face of such blatant disrespect. Yet his voice remained steady, controlled, professional. "I'm here to do my job, gentlemen. The same job I've done perfectly for 15 years. The same job that's kept workers safe and projects on schedule. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have an inspection to complete." But these 3 engineers were just getting started, and they had no idea who they were really dealing with. What these engineers didn't know, what they couldn't have possibly known, was that Marcus Williams wasn't just any electrician. He was also a minority business owner, a licensed electrical contractor with his own firm employing 23 people, and most importantly, he was the brother-in-law of David Chun, the project's primary investor and and the man who held the purse strings for this entire $30 million development. Marcus had met David's sister, Lisa, at a community electrical safety workshop 7 years ago. She was a civil engineer presenting on sustainable building practices. Their connection was instant, built on shared values of excellence, integrity, and giving back to their communities. They married 2 years later in a beautiful ceremony that united their families in ways that transcended culture, race, and background. David and Marcus had become more than in-laws. They were genuine friends who shared a vision for creating more inclusive opportunities in the construction industry. When David's investment group acquired the Riverside Commercial Complex project, he'd specifically requested Marcus's company for the electrical contracting work. But Marcus had one non-negotiable condition: no special treatment, no public acknowledgement of their family connection, and absolutely no preferential consideration. He wanted his company judged solely on the quality of their bids, the excellence of their work, and the professionalism of their team. "I've spent my entire career proving myself," Marcus had told David over dinner months earlier. "I won't have anyone saying I got this contract because of who I'm related to. My work speaks for itself, and that's how it needs to stay." David had respected that wish, even though it meant watching his brother-in-law face the same prejudices and barriers that many minority contractors encountered daily. But he'd also made Marcus a promise: "I respect your pride and your principles. But if anyone ever crosses the line, if anyone disrespects you in a way that goes beyond professional disagreement, you call me." Immediately. Now, standing on this construction site, facing 3 engineers who had revealed not just their professional inadequacy, but their moral bankruptcy, Marcus remembered that promise. As the engineers continued their verbal assault, their racist jokes becoming more brazen, their mocking of his expertise growing louder in front of the entire crew, Marcus made a decision that would alter the trajectory of this entire project. His hand moved to his phone with deliberate calm. The engineers didn't even notice, too consumed with their own performance of hatred. He dialed a number he knew by heart. 2 rings. "David? It's Marcus. I think you need to come down to the Riverside site. Right now." His voice was quiet, controlled, but there was something underneath it, a combination of hurt, anger, and steely resolve that David recognized immediately. In 7 years of knowing Marcus, David had never heard that particular tone. He didn't ask questions. He didn't need details. "I'm 15 minutes away. Don't go anywhere." Marcus ended the call and slipped his phone back into his pocket. He looked at the 3 engineers, who were still laughing, still riding high on their perceived power, completely oblivious to the fact that they'd just written the final chapter of their careers with their own ignorance and hatred. The foreman, Jerry, approached cautiously. "Marcus, I'm sorry about this. This isn't right." "I appreciate that, Jerry," Marcus replied calmly. "Just keep everyone working. This will be resolved very soon." What happened next would change everything for those engineers. The countdown to their reckoning had begun, and they were still celebrating their cruelty. But first, you need to hear what they said next that sealed their fate permanently. Emboldened by Marcus's silence, mistaking his restraint for weakness, Brad decided to push even further. In a move that would later be described in legal depositions as assault on company property and intimidation, he grabbed Marcus's clipboard, the same clipboard that held critical safety inspection documents and certifications, and threw it violently to the ground, scattering papers everywhere across the dusty construction site. Technical drawings fluttered in the wind. Inspection checklists landed in puddles of yesterday's rain. Certification documents that had taken years to earn were now trampled under work boots. "Oops, Butterfingers," Brad laughed, his voice dripping with theatrical mockery as he made exaggerated hand gestures. "Maybe if you spent less time trying to act professional and more time actually learning the trade, you'd be worth something on this site. But hey, we all have our limitations, right? Some people just aren't cut out for real work." Tom joined in, kicking some of the scattered papers further away. "Yeah, maybe stick to simpler jobs. I hear they're hiring at the car wash down the street. That seems more your speed." The cruelty had escalated from verbal to physical, from insults to destruction. This wasn't just workplace harassment anymore. This was a deliberate attempt to break a man's spirit in the most public, humiliating way possible. The foreman, Jerry Martinez, a 30-year construction veteran who'd seen his share of workplace conflicts, finally stepped forward, his face flushed with anger and shame at what was unfolding on his watch. "Brad, that's enough. This has gone way too far. Marcus is one of our most qualified electricians, and you damn well know it. His safety record is spotless, his work is impeccable, and he—" "Shut it, Jerry," Kevin interrupted sharply, wheeling on the foreman with venom in his voice. "Unless you want to join him at the unemployment line. We're the engineers here. We have the degrees. We have the authority. We make the decisions on this project. And I've decided that people like him don't belong on our site. Got a problem with that? People like him." The words echoed across the construction site like a slap heard around the world. The phrase hung in the air, its meaning unmistakable to everyone present. This wasn't about qualifications anymore. This wasn't about work quality or professional disagreements. This was about something far uglier, far more insidious. The mask had completely fallen away, revealing the raw prejudice underneath. Several workers pulled out their phones, recording. This had crossed every line: professional, ethical, legal, and human. Thumbs moved rapidly across screens, some already sending footage to supervisors, others posting to social media in real time. The documentation of injustice was happening instantaneously. A young apprentice electrician named Carlos, who'd been mentored by Marcus for the past 6 months, started forward, but Marcus caught his eye and gave a subtle shake of his head. Not yet. Marcus slowly bent down with measured dignity, gathered his papers one by one, carefully brushing off the dirt and water. He organized them methodically, as if he had all the time in the world, refusing to be rushed or rattled. When he stood up, his posture was straight, his expression carrying a calm that was almost eerie, the kind of calm that comes from absolute certainty. "Gentlemen, I want you to remember this moment," Marcus said, his voice clear and steady, cutting through the ambient noise of the construction site. "Remember exactly how you felt right now. Remember this feeling of power you think you have. Remember every word you said, every action you took. Because in about," he checked his watch with deliberate precision, "7 minutes, your entire world is about to change. Everything you think you know about your place in this industry is about to be rewritten." Brad laughed mockingly, exchanging glances with Kevin and Tom as if they were all in on the same joke. "What are you going to do? Complain to HR? File a lawsuit? Good luck with that, buddy. You're nobody. You think anyone's going to believe you over us? We're licensed engineers with connections all over this city. You're just another worker. Replaceable. Forgettable. Nobody." Marcus smiled, not with anger, not with bitterness, but with the quiet confidence of someone who knew something they didn't. It was the smile of a man who'd already won a battle that his opponents didn't even know they were fighting. "We'll see about that, gentlemen. We'll see about that very soon." And in the distance, 3 black SUVs were already pulling into the construction site parking lot. 6 minutes later, exactly as Marcus had predicted, 3 black SUVs pulled up to the construction site entrance, their tires crunching authoritatively on the gravel. The vehicles moved with purpose, parking in formation near the main office trailer. Out stepped David Chun, the project owner and lead investor, his presence commanding immediate attention. He was followed by his legal team, 2 sharply dressed attorneys carrying briefcases and tablets, and the construction company's CEO, Robert Martinez, whose expression suggested he'd already seen the videos and was barely containing his fury. The transformation on the construction site was instantaneous. Workers stopped mid-task. Conversations died. The entire atmosphere shifted from casual workday to corporate tribunal in seconds. The color drained from the engineers' faces as recognition dawned. Brad's smirk vanished. Kevin's posture changed from aggressive to defensive. Tom actually took a step backward. They'd made a catastrophic miscalculation, and the reality of it was now walking directly toward them in custom-tailored suits. David Chun moved with measured purpose, his expression unreadable but his intent crystal clear. He walked straight past the 3 engineers as if they were invisible, heading directly to Marcus. Without a word, he embraced his brother-in-law, a gesture that spoke volumes to everyone watching. It wasn't just a hug, it was a public declaration of solidarity, family, and respect. When David pulled back, he kept one hand on Marcus's shoulder and turned to face the 3 engineers with a look that could cut steel. His voice, when he spoke, was controlled but carried across the entire construction site with devastating clarity. "Gentlemen, I believe you've met my brother-in-law, Marcus Williams, owner of Williams Electrical Contracting and one of the most respected master electricians in this state. Multiple certifications, 15 years of flawless safety records, and a reputation that, until 20 minutes ago, was never questioned by anyone with an ounce of professionalism." He paused, pulling out his phone and holding it up. "I've just reviewed the footage that multiple workers have already sent to my office. 7 different angles, all time-stamped, all crystal clear. In the span of 20 minutes, you 3 have created a hostile work environment, engaged in blatant racial discrimination, destroyed company property, physically intimidated an employee, and threatened other workers who dared to speak up." David's voice dropped lower, more dangerous. "You didn't just insult Marcus. You didn't just reveal your own prejudices. You put this entire project at legal risk. You've exposed this company to liability. And you did it all on camera, with witnesses, in the most documented way possible." Robert Martinez stepped forward, his 6'3" frame imposing, his voice ice-cold with corporate authority. He'd built his construction company from the ground up over 30 years, and his reputation for running ethical, professional job sites was legendary. What he'd witnessed in those videos had personally offended everything he stood for. "Brad Thompson, Kevin Morris, Tom Anderson," he said, each name pronounced like a judge reading a sentence. "You are terminated. Effective immediately. Your credentials will be flagged in our system, and I will personally ensure that every major contractor in this region knows exactly why you were fired. Security will escort you off this property within the next 5 minutes. Your final paychecks will be mailed to your addresses on file, minus deductions for the company property you damaged, and the legal fees we'll incur addressing your behavior." And you can expect formal legal action for the damages you've caused to this company's reputation and the hostile work environment lawsuit you've just gifted us. Brad stammered, his face flushing red, panic finally setting in. Wait, you can't. This is a misunderstanding. It was just joking around. Marcus, tell them we were just. The only misunderstanding, David interrupted, his voice sharp as a blade, was yours. You misunderstood what century you're living in. You misunderstood basic human decency. You misunderstood professional conduct. You misunderstood the law. And you gravely, catastrophically misunderstood who you were dealing with. He took a step closer to the three men, who now looked like they wanted the ground to swallow them whole. Marcus asked for anonymity because he wanted to be judged on his work. I honored that. But you decided to judge him on something else entirely, didn't you? And now you're going to pay the price for that choice. David then turned away from the engineers as if they no longer existed, addressing the entire crew of workers who had gathered, some still holding their phones, all bearing witness to this moment of accountability. Let me be crystal clear to everyone here, his voice rang out. This site operates on respect, professionalism, and merit. Nothing else. Not skin color, not background, not where you came from or what you look like. You will be judged on the quality of your work and the content of your character. Anyone who has a problem with that can join these three gentlemen at the unemployment office. Is that understood? A chorus of yes, sir, echoed across the site. Two security officers approached. The three engineers were escorted off the property in front of everyone. Past the workers they'd lorded over, past the foreman they'd threatened, past Marcus, who watched with quiet dignity as justice unfolded. The same workers who had witnessed their cruelty now watched their complete downfall. Justice served in the most public way possible, and the cameras were still recording every single second. Within hours, the story spread like wildfire across the construction industry. The videos, captured from 7 different angles, went viral on LinkedIn, Twitter, and industry-specific forums. Construction workers, engineers, project managers, and executives across the country watched the footage, shared it, and commented on it. The hashtags #RiversideJustice and #ConstructionAccountability began trending. Trade publications picked up the story. Local news stations requested interviews. The three engineers, Brad Thompson, Kevin Morris, and Tom Anderson, found themselves blacklisted before the sun had even set on that Tuesday. Their LinkedIn profiles were flooded with comments. Their professional reputations, built over years, were destroyed in minutes by their own actions captured on multiple phones and shared across social media platforms. Recruiters who had their resumes on file immediately moved them to do not hire lists. Other construction firms that had worked with them began internal reviews, wondering what they'd missed. Their names became cautionary tales, warnings whispered on job sites. Don't be like those Riverside engineers. Brad's wife called him that evening after friends sent her the videos. Kevin received a termination notice from the Professional Engineering Association he'd been part of for 12 years, citing ethics violations. Tom's father, a retired contractor who'd built his own reputation on integrity, couldn't even look at his son when they spoke. Meanwhile, back at the Riverside site, Marcus completed his inspection that day. The electrical work was perfect, as it always was. Every conduit properly placed, every junction box correctly installed, every connection meeting code standards and exceeding safety requirements. He signed off on the inspection with his characteristic thoroughness, and the concrete pour proceeded on schedule that afternoon. The project continued, but with a fundamentally renewed sense of respect and unity among the crew. Workers who had remained silent during the confrontation approached Marcus privately, apologizing for not speaking up sooner, thanking him for his grace under pressure. Carlos, the young apprentice, told him, "You showed me today what real strength looks like. It's not about fighting back with anger. It's about standing firm in your dignity." Jerry, the foreman, implemented new protocols for reporting workplace harassment, making sure every worker knew they had protection and support. The crew became tighter, more cohesive, looking out for one another in ways they hadn't before. 2 weeks later, over dinner at David and Lisa's home, David presented Marcus with a formal partnership opportunity, a contract to oversee electrical installations on all future projects across his investment portfolio, a deal potentially worth millions over the next 5 years. Marcus reviewed the contract carefully, then looked up with that same calm, thoughtful expression he'd worn on the construction site. "I'll accept, but on one condition." David leaned forward, intrigued. "Name it." "We actively recruit and mentor young electricians from underrepresented communities," Marcus said firmly. "We create apprenticeship programs, offer scholarships for licensing exams, provide equipment and tools for those who can't afford them. We build pathways for people who face the same barriers I have." Lisa smiled, reaching across the table to squeeze her brother's hand. "That's exactly what we need." Marcus's voice grew quieter but more intense. "What happened to me that day has happened to thousands of others. Probably happening right now on job sites across this country. But not everyone has a brother-in-law who can make those calls. Not everyone has cameras recording. Not everyone gets justice. I want to be that person for others. The one who opens doors, who creates opportunities, who says you belong here, when the world is telling them they don't. David extended his hand. Then we have a deal. Let's build something that matters. The partnership was announced 3 days later. Within a month, the Williamstown Construction Initiative launched, offering paid apprenticeships specifically targeting minority communities, providing mentorship programs, and creating a scholarship fund for licensing and certification exams. The story became a teaching moment in construction firms across the region and eventually across the country. HR departments used the Riverside incident in training videos. Construction management courses analyzed it as a case study. Some saw it as justice finally served. Others saw it as a warning about the consequences of discrimination. But everyone understood the message that echoed from that Tuesday morning confrontation. Respect is non-negotiable. Dignity is universal. And actions, whether good or bad, always have consequences. 6 months later, Marcus stood before the first graduating class of the Williamstown Apprenticeship Program. 12 young electricians, representing 6 different countries of origin and 4 different languages spoken at home, all now licensed and employed. You earned this, he told them, his voice carrying the weight of experience. Not because of who you know, but because of the work you put in. Now go out there and prove what I already know, that excellence has no color, no accent, no background. It just is. And in that moment, what started as humiliation on a construction site had transformed into a movement of change, opportunity, and hope. 3 engineers lost everything in minutes because they chose hatred over humanity. Marcus turned his moment of humiliation into a movement of change. This story proves that karma doesn't forget, and justice might be delayed, but it's never denied. If this story fired you up, smash that like button right now. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today, because stories like this need to be told. And subscribe because we're bringing you more real stories that will restore your faith in justice. Hit that notification bell so you never miss when karma comes collecting. Now here's my question for you. Have you ever witnessed workplace discrimination? How did you handle it? Drop your stories in the comments below,